The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. I'm sorry I started so late tonight. It only took me like 9.5 hours to make that thumbnail that you all just glossed over, presumably in like half a second, instead of taking a moment to appreciate the subtle brilliance that laid therein. They're trying to understand. It was really more to amuse myself than anyone else. But by the time I was done with it, my wife said it looked like a work of art. So there you go. There you go. That's really all the faint praise I need. That was all the faint praise I needed. Anyway, hope your Labor Day weekend has been going phenomenally well. Mine has been a time to hang with family, not in any sort of formal setting or anything like that, although I happened to see both of my in-laws. I saw both my mother-in-law and my father today, not because it was Labor Day. It was just a weird set of circumstances that they ended up coming by my house today and hanging out with my sons, who are rarely around, so because they're usually off in dormitory in school. So that was nice. And as we start getting ready for the fall season tomorrow being the start of my fantasy football excursions for 2024, as those of you who are participating in the Good Lawgic Fantasy Football League are aware, tomorrow we begin our draft. Tomorrow is the draft, in addition to our auction for seeding. So, but for most of you who are watching, that's neither here nor there. You really just want me to get started talking about the things that I'm supposed to be talking about. So I'm gonna commence now. Now it's all starting now. It's all starting now. I know I started late. This is what I was looking for. My God, this was nowhere to be found when I was looking for it. I have way too many tabs. I want to share with you this before I get into any of these stories. And this is just because I saw this and I couldn't even believe this story. This is, some of you are going to be mad at me for even like wasting your time with this, and I apologize. Okay. I have just to explain something to you about my nature. My nature is that if I see someone engaging in brilliant strategy, I sit back and I revel in it. I sort of like put it aside. Like, when can I employ that sometime in the future? If I'm going through shorts, which I can't help but go through shorts because you turn on YouTube and they just shove it in your face, the shorts. So if I see something, it could be a chess opening, it could be some quick story, and I'm always like, the reason I'm flipping through them is I'm like, maybe I'll come across something that will be of interest to you fine people. So, very fine people. I said it. Anyway, so some very fine people. Some of you, very fine people. Well, where was I? Yeah, so I came across this story of just long-term brilliance that I was just like, I don't know how I can ever use this, but I don't want to forget it. Today, if you're following sports, since I was just talking about fantasy football, I'm going to just branch over into Major League Baseball. I grew up as a huge baseball fan. In the 80s, the 90s, even into the aughts, I was following baseball way too much. Hardcore Yankee fan. And then I got into fantasy baseball, so I started getting appreciation for various players. And I got to tell you something. The troika that the Atlanta Braves had in the 90s, their pitching troika of Smoltz, Maddox, and Glavine, were just unbelievable. If you're under 40, you can't really appreciate just how phenomenal they were, how intimidating they were. If you had to play them in a playoff series, really intimidating. Because it's like, which one of them is scariest? I guess probably Maddox, given the accolades he's gotten. He was like slightly better than the other two. Smoltz was just crazy scary also. And Glavine was it was really tough. Well, anyway, there's a story from Javi Lopez sharing over here about the brilliance of Greg Maddox, referred to as the professor. He's referred to as the professor. And I heard this story. I was like, I don't know how this guy ever lost. I don't know how he ever lost. He was unbelievable. So let me share this quick story with you. It's this short, so it's only like 60 seconds. It's not gonna work. All right. Here he is telling over his story about Greg Maddox, nicknamed the Professor, because he looked like a professor. He didn't look like an athlete. He looked like a professor, and he was just friggin' genius.
We were winning like 8-0. It was easy game in the 8th inning. And he told me, don't throw anything inside on Bagwell.
That's Jeff Bagwell, who was a superstar of the 90s. He was a great hitter on the Astros in the 90s. Very, very intimidating hitter. And so he basically, this is his catcher talking about, don't throw anything inside on Jeff Bagwell. That's what he's like, when you're calling the stuff, when you're calling pitches, don't call anything on the inside part of the plate for Jeff Bagwell. So that's what he told Javi Lopez.
Or everything outside. And I said, okay.
Everything outside.
I think it was somebody odd. And he wants to go inside. And I go, okay, it's your game.
They're winning 8-0. So he's like, let's throw inside here.
So I went inside, called inside, and Bagwell hit like 1,000-mile. And I was mad. And I was like, what are you doing? And he goes, they got a good team. We got a good team. We're going to play them in the playoff. He's going to wait for that pitch. 3 months later, we're in the playoff, bases loaded in the 7th. We threw 3 straight changes and struck him out. And I was walking to the dugout. He goes, hey. And I look at him and said, you remember 3 months ago, 2 months ago? And I said, no, I don't. He was looking for that pitch, the homer that he hit. And we were winning. Like
this guy in a regular season game is thinking about what the hitter is going to be looking for him to be throwing in a playoff game 3 months later. He's like planning ahead, thinking like, oh, okay, so if I give in to him here and I try coming inside, I teach him that in this scenario, I'm going to come inside. I'm training his brain to think a certain way. So now we're winning 8-0. Who cares if I give him a run? Who cares? But if I can help train his brain to be thinking along a certain line, then if I have a pressure situation against him sometime in the future in an important scenario, his brain is going to be, I'll set his brain up in a certain place and boom, 3 pitches, strike him out. Unbelievable. I don't know how he ever lost. Guy's crazy. He's crazy. Lunatic. He's a freaking lunatic. How do you beat that? I don't know. Anyway, let me get to some of these super chats. Master Phillips Hayden with the 5 king of recruitment. God bless you. Let me give you one of those. 5 new members to the following. Welcome to the following. Those of you who have been joined by courtesy of Master Phillips, aka Disciple number 7. Please make sure you express your gratitude to him because he brought you into a group that is committed towards greater personal growth through community unity and obviously leadership training skills. Not at all a cult type of cult, but brought you into the following. Do you know, it's like you'll be able to tell people later on, we look back, you'll be like, during the early days, now we're in the halcyon days, when we're talking like 12, 18 months from now. No, you'll be able to say, no, dude, early days, I was in the following. It was all my success attributable to that. That's what it is. It's attributable to that. Please bear in mind that the following is not at all a cult. Type of cult. And yeah, we welcome you. We're glad to have you in here, and God bless you. Those of you who were added, please give him please express your gratitude verbally. That's part of personal growth. Cars and Death says Michigander here, half-witless, and a gynocratically mediocre crew are trying to turn Michigan into their version of one-party California. I gotta tell you something. I don't have much good news for you in Michigan. My suggestion to you, if you live in Michigan, is move. There's nothing left. There's no. I don't know how you beat this. I don't know how you beat what she did. I think this was the game set match. What she did. I defy any of you. We'll get into the story with her. I'm gonna first talk about Elon Musk and his battle with Brazil, with the country of Brazil. I'm gonna talk about that first, as well as a couple other stories. I'm saving the Governor Whitmer ridiculousness. I don't know how you stay there. I don't know how you stay there. You're literally living in a tyrannical state, with which basically she stripped away any chances of curing their tyranny. Any chance. Curtis Barkley smiles when the Yankees. This is not true. This is obviously not true. Not true at all. This is ridiculous. It's fairly ridiculous. If you look back to the years that the Yankees won, generally they were having to be really good years for the entire world. The entire world smiled. It's true. It's true. But look at them in the 50s. Right? In the 50s, 20s, 50s. 70s were a little rough. 90s, late 90s. All good periods for the world, for America and the world. You guys should be rooting for the Yankees to win. Everyone should be rooting for the Yankees to win. It's American to root for the Yankees to win. I don't even know how someone would seriously try debating that, to be fair with you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a reference to God, by the way. It's the Holy One, blessed he should be. That's a reference to God. So he's saying that God smiles when the Yankees lose. No. God is actually is voicing his displeasure anytime the Yankees lose the World Series, or anyone else is crowned champions. I wouldn't say on a day-by-day basis. But, yeah. All right, let's get in on Elon Musk. I want to start with that. I really want to start with Elon. Share with you this story, because a lot of people are probably very confused as to what's going on. You might have heard some stuff about Elon and the whole development of this thing here, and I haven't talked about it at all. It has taken a more serious turn over the last couple of days. This story really goes all the way back to April. I'm going to go in timeline here so we can better appreciate it. Those of you who are confused by the conflict between Elon, or specifically X, but it's really Elon. When I say it's really Elon, meaning they don't care about X, they care about the fact that Elon is the one who's running X, and that Elon doesn't bend the knee to them with respect to their requests to basically impinge on free speech rights. So they're not happy with him for that. So let's talk about exactly how this entire story unfolded. And it goes all the way back to April of this year. So we'll go through one AP story after another, but they're all very nice and short. I like having this because it's nice and condensed. All right. Look, I understand you're saying you're a lifelong Astros fan. I get it. And we can all pretend that they had a legitimate win of the World Series, not at all through cheating and stuff of that nature. They were a scary team for a little while there, a couple of years ago. They were a scary team. They were pretty good pitching, great lineup, pretty scary team. And to be fair, I can understand that you had like decades of frustration leading up to that. So, yeah, I get it. I understand. I just want to explain this. When it comes to being a sports fan, it's much like when you're in kindergarten. Because when you're a sports fan, as I've admitted that I've been, you're pretty much you're a kindergartner. So you tend off starting with like, okay, when you're in kindergarten, you're sitting, or first grade, you're sitting next to someone in class, and it's like, oh, wow, you like grape soda? I like grape soda. Let's be best friends. And you're just like, that's the nature of your relationship, right? It's like, I'm here and you're here, and we have some tiny little thing in common. So let's be best friends. So too it is when we're developing affinity for a sports team. Like, oh, you have this player. I like this player. Let me root for you forever, even if he gets traded away. Let me just tell you and spend all my money on you forever. So, yeah, that's basically the relationship that fans have with a sports team. I'm not saying this critically because, like I said, I've been a fan of sports teams. I get it. I totally get it. It's a to my mind, it's a healthy, pretty much a healthy for most people, the vast majority of sports fans. The sports are a nice, healthy outlet to escape from the world. In fact, one of the things when I was on with George the Giant Slayer yesterday, I was talking with him about healthy. We were talking about how they have all these different Comic-Cons and MCU and people dressing up in costumes and how that's become all the rage. And they were talking about why that's become all the rage. And I pointed out, and they were talking about how, you know, the development of the Marvel Comics universe and really with Iron Man, that really was the explosion of MCU, and that just made, you know, and that just created this intense interest. And that's true. You know, the quality of their work definitely helped people get into the whole fantasy element of things. But, you know, one of the things they're leaving out there is Comic-Con was not such a big thing when the Lord of the Rings trilogy was so big. I mean, it could have been. It could have been. There was Star Trek conventions going back to the 70s and 80s. But they were never, you didn't see anyone in mainstream culture. The people who actually went to these conventions were looked down as being complete and total losers. You know, there was famously a Saturday Night Live skit, which, again, I'm showing my age. In the 1980s, William Shatner made an appearance on Saturday Night Live. And one of the skits they have is he shows up to a convention. And at the convention, so he gets up there and all these different, this is like, I think Billy Crystal's big year there. Phil Hartman was there in a sketch. So Dana Carvey was definitely there. So I think this is 1985, based on my recollection of SNL history. So at one point there, he's being asked. He gets up and they're like, you know, the announcer at this Star Trek convention gets up there and he's like, and now, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. I think the way he said was, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me. He looks around. Gentlemen, put your hands together for the one and only Captain James Tiberius Kirk, William Shatner. And he comes out there and everyone's like all excited and applauding. And they're all like, wow, you know, this is like the king. This is like the king, right? I mean, it's a Star Trek convention and it's freaking Captain Kirk standing in front of you. So obviously they all start applauding. Yay. And he gets up there. He's like, oh, thank you so much. It's really great to see all these fans out here. So I guess I'm just going to take some questions. If any of you have any questions. And you know, the first guy asked him a question. He's like, you know, so in episode 37, can you tell me? He's like, wait, episode 37? What was that? Which was episode 37? So he's like, well, that's when the Romulans came and they attacked you and you had to defend them. He's like, yeah, okay. I think I got it. He's like, yeah. So when you went into your quarters to retrieve your personal diary there, I was just wondering, can you confirm for us what was the safe's combination? He's like, what? And he's I have no idea. I don't know what that was. So he's like, okay, next question. And the next question is some other question where they're just like, you know, they're peppering him with, because they're Trekkies, so they prefer being called Trekkers. So they're peppering him with different questions that he has no way of knowing the answer to, because he's like, what is, and then all of a sudden he's like, look, stop for a second. I have to ask a question. What is wrong with all of you people? It was a TV show. I did it as a lark. I don't even understand how you guys can be so consumed with this. You, have you ever kissed a girl? No, I know. And these guys like looking at he's like, this is my advice to you. Forget about Star Trek. Move out of your parents' basements. And all of a sudden, the host comes up there and just comes over and starts like yelling, really like yelling up close in his face. He's like, and then the host comes back and goes, so that was the evil Captain Kirk from episode 3, Enemy Within. Thank you. And everyone's like, oh yeah. The point being, everyone knew that they were a joke. Everyone knew they were a joke, but now it's a very different universe. Now we're living in a universe. We're going to these Comic-Con things, going to anime or different things like that. This is something that it's like, oh yeah, no one looks at them as if you're someone who's an incel. No. Lots of people, men, even women, will attend these different conventions, and we're living in a whole different universe here. And what I was speculating about is it's not because MCU got so big. I don't think that that's what it is, because Star Trek was really big, Lord of the Rings was really big. People could have gone around dressed as hobbits or orcs or whatever the hell they wanted to dress as, but that wasn't really so popular. No. I think the reason that there's been this massive development in these different Comic-Con type of things, where people are coming dressed in costumes and living out their characters, is because the state of the world today is that depression and mental illness is so prevalent, so commonplace, where everyone, especially everyone living west of the Rockies, well, let's face it, everyone living in a big city has a therapist or two or three on speed dial, and they're really just miserable people. And when you're a miserable person, you're feeling alone, you're feeling isolated, you go to these things, and it helps basically escape from reality and bond with people who have a common interest with you, who you might not otherwise be friends with, and they become like your new. I think it's to look, if you're going occasionally. I want to be clear about this, so no one ever takes me out of context. I can understand the concept of someone saying, you know what, I never done this before, let me try this out. Maybe we do it once a year. It's like a thing. It's like, you know what? It's a fun thing. It's a lark. We have a good time twice a year. But people who are going regularly, I'm sorry, that level of escapism, that cannot be reflective of a healthy mindset. And when I think that in today's day and age, I think that lack of a healthy mindset is so commonplace that this has become de norm, where it's like this type of branching out into going to, losing yourself in escapism on a regular basis, where it's like you're not just a fan of the movie or comic books, but like you're actually going out and buying yourself costumes and flying out to these different cities to attend different conventions. At a certain point, you sort of got to ask yourself, like, okay, is it really that much of a love for this thing, or is it just you're just desperate to escape because of other issues you got? I'm just asking questions. I don't know. I'm not talking to any individuals, but certainly Bobby Mercer, favorite all-time Yankee forever. For me, it's Paul O'Neill. Bobby Mercer was a good broadcaster. He was a good broadcaster at the time. All right. I don't know how I got into this whole thing. Let's get into X and how they're being banned in Brazil. Sao Paulo. Oh, wait. Just do a quick check here. Make sure that I'm good. I don't want to miss. Let me check on the ghetto. Joe wanted to see a trucker. It was the Enterprise incident. It was Spock who entered the combination in Kirk's quarters. This was not a convention. It was an SNL skit. Shatner was the guest. All right. It's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. All right. Headline-grabbing billionaire Elon Musk is clashing with Supreme Court justice in Brazil over free speech. Far right. It's far right. They're all the way over there. Accounts and misinformation on X, the social media platform Musk bought when it was Twitter. Since his takeover, Musk has upended many of Twitter's policies, gutted its staff. Can you believe that he gutted the staff? And transformed what people see on the site. As its owner and perhaps most influential user, he's also used to try to sway political discourse around the world. I want to point this out, by the way. I was on Twitter before it was X. I was on Twitter before it was owned by Elon. I cannot really see an appreciable difference in the content. I can't. The only difference is there's less shadow banning, less censorship, I guess. Hopefully, but everyone's making like, oh my gosh, can you believe how like different Twitter, like, no, I don't even see it. Am I the only person who says that? It's like, what is everyone talking about? I don't even understand it. I'm confused by it. Not even by I think it's all a red herring. Anyway, it's designed to basically portray, and perhaps that's actually the ultimate truth, where it's like it's like this is this classic leftists who feel like reality doesn't have to change. I just need to change my labeling of that reality in order for us to deem that reality has changed. The same way, Trump was never a racist before. His content didn't change before or after he ran president, became president. But all of a sudden, the same conduct he was doing, now he's a racist. He hates women. He hates Jews. He hates everyone, apparently. It's like nothing about the actual entity changed. It's just the perception is a strong effort to push the perception. Another example of this, by the way, is just the phrase Project 2025, which if you look at what Project 2025 is, and I started looking at it in more earnest this evening, I'll tell you that there's nothing remotely scary in Project 2025, but it's become, they've successfully created some sort of boogeyman of like, did you see what Project 2025 is? It's going to change the whole world. It's all racist and it's transphobic and it's misogynistic and they want to basically make your uterus illegal. They've made it into this crazy thing when there's nothing remotely racist, misogynistic, anything. There's no istic about it. It's really about local governance and family. The reason that they have a fear of Project 2025 is because it basically says we're done with DEI. We're done with CRT. So that's what they're saying is there's transphobes. It's like it's not about what the actual entity is. It's all about the labeling. That's all it is about. So apparently now Twitter, which the content is pretty much the same, except for the fact that they're not censoring out stories that are harmful to the left. Twitter is basically, this is the Wild West of neo-fascism and all sorts of ridiculous labeling. His latest entanglement is inside the nation of 203 million people that has the largest population economy in South America. The South African-born CEO of Tesla and SpaceX bought Twitter in 2022, declares himself a free speech absolutist, which there really is no such thing as a free speech absolutist. There really is no such thing as that, but I understand the good sentiment behind it. So, I'm not going to get ticky-tacky on the term. To his critics, it's absolutism with a political slant. It's political slant in that they're unaccustomed to seeing a lack of censorship. So that's what makes it a political slant. How is it politically slanted to say everyone can talk? How is that a political slant? Unless you're used to living in an environment where everything has already been slanted, like crazy 60-degree kind of angle, and now it's just flat. So you're like, wow, this flatness of evenness of distribution, this feels very slanted compared to what I see on Facebook. It's totally different from Instagram and nothing at all like all this stuff I hear on NBC News. So it's like, if you're used to living in an environment like that, and you're used to actually you're not used to hearing the other side of the coin, that feels very slanted. He reinstated previously banned accounts such as the conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, former U.S. President Donald Trump, as well as accounts belonging to neo-Nazis, white supremacists. Really? Name them. Who? Who did you reinstate? Because you're saying other people as well as accounts. Who? Tell us who. Advertisers halted spending on X in response to anti-Semitic and other hateful material were engaging in blackmail, Musk has alleged. He didn't simply allege. They ended up basically admitting it. One of the stories I didn't cover here, which I probably should have covered, is when he sued when he sued them for basically trying to blacklist him and blackmail. We had a conglomerate, you had a consortium of advertisers who basically said that they're going to work together to try and shut down shut down X by starving it of any advertising revenue, and he sued them. The agency that they had formed, which was called GARM, they shut it down. They're like, whoops, this is a really big lawsuit we're looking at here. We don't need this. So why are you shutting it down? I don't understand. Why would you be shutting it down if you weren't doing anything wrong? But as soon as he alleged their antitrust violations, they were just like, oh, whoa. We're done with this. We didn't sign up for this. Unbelievable. In the U.S., free speech is a constitutional right that is much more permissive than in many countries. No, not many countries. Any other country. It's not many countries. It's every country, including Brazil, where Supreme Court Justice Alejandra de Moraes this month ordered an investigation into Musk over the dissemination of defamatory fake news and another probe over possible obstruction, incitement, and criminal organization. So they start. So this guy, which this is the dude right here, and you can tell it's really an interesting thing how sometimes they look so satanic. I didn't want to go to that story just yet. I just wanted to get a picture of this freaky looking dude. Please stop that. This is him over here. So that is Alejandra de Moraes. What accounts? That's not what I wanted. This is the same. What's related stories? Brazil judges can order any site to remove content. So this is a big part of their deal. That they say if you're operating here, we are this country of Brazil, and we can order you to remove content, and we're going to pretend that we're not North Korea. Some decisions are sealed from the public. Neither Brazilian courts nor X have disclosed the list of accounts that have been ordered to stop publishing, but prominent supporters of former President Jair Bolsonaro and far-right activists no longer appear on the platform. Some belong to the network known as digital militias. They were targeted by a 5-year investigation overseas by De Moraes, initially for allegedly spreading defamatory fake news and threats against Supreme Court justices, and then after Bolsonaro's 2022 loss for inciting demonstrations across the country that were pushing to overturn President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's election. Who's this guy? De Moraes is unmistakable with his freakish bald head, athletic build, sweeping black robe, and his escalating attacks on the judge must call him Brazil's Darth Vader. And when you just look at him, you actually can hear the tune of like dun 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 dun. Whether investigating former President Jair Bolsonaro, banishing his far-right allies from social media, or ordering the arrest of supporters who stormed government buildings on January 8th, Moraes has aggressively pursued those he views as undermining Brazil's young democracy, because it's always about preserving democracy. Let me give you a news flash here, okay? Let me give you a news flash. When you're on the side of censorship, and when I say censorship, I mean censoring content from adults. When you are on the side of censorship, that the government should play a role in silencing people, you are never, ever, ever on the right side of history. It's that simple. Does that mean that we should be consuming whatever content whatever content is out there? No, but that's up to the individual to determine what content he wants to absorb and what content he refuses to absorb. But for a government to come along and say, I'm going to start setting the rules as to what adults can consume, that is a government which is bent on tyranny. Not sometimes, always. That is always the case. Always. Always. And when they come with some sort of argument saying that, you know, we're trying to help the people. This is for the good of the people. This is to benefit society or whatever other nonsense they're throwing out there. That's always a lie. And that's always the way they try to phrase it. That's always they try to frame it that way. That's just the nature of how they operate. In fact, I can't say it as well as this woman who's a North Korean who made this point. She would know. She would know. We'll come back to this story, but I just wanted to share with you this quick little clip here.
Tyranny always comes in the name of compassion and equality of outcomes. When I was at Columbia, they are brainwashing my classmates saying education should be free. Healthcare is a human right. How unfair is it that there are billionaires and there are homeless people? It should be we are all equal. This same idea began the living hell of North Korea. When Kim Il-sung came to my grandmother's and my grandfather, he said this to exact thing to us. How unfair is that? They are landowners, they are capitalists. And how unfair is that your children cannot be educated, you need to pay for it. If you give me the power, Kim Il-sung said, I'm going to make everything free. Government was gonna provide everything for us. If we just gave up our private property, our freedom of speech, our freedom of movement. Tyranny always comes.
Very, very well said. Very, very well said. And that's why I say, whenever you see people who are on the side of suppressing opinions and speech, and look, obviously, some things are not meant for children. That's clear and obvious. But if you're trying to censor things from adults and you're in the government, Now, I will tell you this, you know, many religions will say this is censor, we don't want you to do this. And if someone decides to embrace that, that's fine. Because that you have an option of participating in or walking away from. You can basically say, I mean, I'll tell you this much. In my religious circles, there's a lot of different types of content. Most of it of lascivious type of nature. They'll be like, oh my gosh, that's not something that we think any adherents should be consuming. And you as an individual decide, do I embrace this as, you know, as the direction for my life or not? That is a horrible, awful role for the government to ever play, though. For the government, if you want to join some church or you want to join a synagogue or whatever, and they tell you shouldn't be consuming this, and that's, you know, you want to adhere to that, that's your choice to adhere to that religious perspective. But that's part of your liberties as an individual, that you can make that choice. For government to make a choice as to what you as an adult can consume is horrifying, and it's never for your good. It's always for their own good and for your detriment. Always. Well, let's continue with this Elon Musk battle with the tyrants in Brazil. Days after a mob stormed Brazil's capital, de Moraes ordered Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, TikTok, and Instagram to block the accounts of individuals accused of inciting or supporting attacks on Brazilian democratic order. Look at this monster. Brazil's political right has long characterized de Moraes as muzzling free speech and engaging in political persecution. Lawmakers in Bolsonaro's circle have been imprisoned and his supporters' homes raided. This is why we cannot give in on free speech here. We cannot cede an inch, not 1 inch, because then today it's an inch, and by the time you're looking back 10 years later, we're Brazil. That's what it is. Bolsonaro himself became a target of digital militias investigation in 2021. That was partly because he was casting unfounded doubt on Brazil's electronic voting system. because we all know that electronic voting systems never have any doubt. They're always beyond reproach. That year, he told the massive rally that he would no longer comply with de Moraes' decisions, pushing Brazil to the brink of institutional crisis. Far-right ex-users have been trying to involve Musk in Brazilian politics for years, said Bruna Santos, lawyer and campaign manager at nonprofit Digital Action. They often tag him, ask him to take a stand on Moraes, she said. On Saturday, he did, republishing a post from X's Global Government Affairs tagging de Moraes and writing, "Why are you doing this, Alejandre?" Musk posted Saturday that this was going back in April. This is not this week. This is reinstating the accounts, most of which apparently are blocked only in Brazil, will probably lead to social media platform to dry up revenue in Brazil and force the company to shutter its local office. In his decision to investigate Musk, de Moraes accused him of waging a public disinformation campaign about the top court's actions. Yeah. All right. I want to move forward because I'm not going to go through this, and this article is pretty lengthy. I want to just give you some background here. Not sell you that AP is going to give you a fair shake, because let's be real. Anyway, moving forward here. A couple of weeks ago, I lost the story. I had it here, and I don't know where the story went. But just to update you, a couple of weeks ago, Musk shut down his Brazilian offices. And basically took all the people who were working in Brazil and said, "You're closed. Go home. Those offices are closed." The reason that he did that is because Brazil has been stepping up its criminal work, and he was worried. It's reported that he was worried that whoever would be deemed to be working for X could potentially be arrested by Brazilian police. And he didn't want to expose anyone to that kind of potential harm. So he closed X's offices in Brazil in the beginning of the summer. Well, now, so after that happened, after he closed their offices, they tried serving him with papers. And they said, "You need to have a representative here in Brazil. If you don't have a representative in Brazil, you cannot operate in Brazil." So the blocking of social media platform and X divided users and politicians, because apparently what happened was on the first day without X, many Brazilians say they feel disconnected from the world. So what happened was they said, "You can't operate here because you don't have anyone working here. If you don't have anyone working here, we're going to shut down X from operating in Brazil and say it's banned." And that's what they did. The ban went into effect on Saturday. And here's the first report based on that. The blocking of social media platform in X Brazil divided users and politicians over the legitimacy of the ban, and many Brazilians on Sunday had difficulty and doubts over navigating other social media in its absence. The shutdown of Elon Musk's platform started early Saturday, making it largely inaccessible on both the web and through mobile apps after the billionaire refused to name a legal representative to the country. Missing a deadline imposed by Supreme Court Justice Alejandro de Moraes, the blockade marks an escalation in months-long feud between Musk and Moraes over free speech, far-right accounts, and misinformation. Brazil has been one of the biggest marks for X with tens of millions of users. I've got the feeling that I have no idea what's happening in the world right now. Bizarre entertainment writer and heavy X user Chico Barney wrote on Threads, a text-based app developed by Instagram that Barney was using as an alternative. This Threads algorithm is like an all-you-can-eat restaurant where the waiter keeps serving things I would never order. That's pretty funny. Blue Sky, a social media platform that was launched last year as an alternative to X and other more established sites, has seen a large influx of Brazilians in the past couple of days. Companies said Friday has seen about 200,000 new users from Brazil sign up during that time, and the number continues to grow by the minute. No doubt, because they basically have no social media. And you took away their prime cocaine, they're going to be looking for a fix elsewhere. Brazilian users are also setting records for activities such as follows and likes. Blue Sky said, no one cares. Previously, users of other platforms welcome Brazilians to their ranks. Hello, literally everyone in Brazil, a user wrote on Threads. All right, so this is basically people in Brazil are desperately trying to find an alternative to X. as the ban went into effect on Saturday. Today, because they don't have a Labor Day there, which frankly, between you and me, I'm at a loss. And maybe when you can explain it to me, I don't understand how Labor Day is an actual holiday. Perhaps, and I don't mean the actual, like the etymology, and where I can Google that too. No, tell me why it is that. No, why? But why? Why? Really? Why? Why? Is it because once we have a taste of something, like just a free Monday, like we won't give it up? It does all come down to economics. When you talk about politics, that's for sure. That's for sure. Okay, that doesn't mean... Yeah, but I can tell you why we have Juneteenth. The reason we have Juneteenth is because you had political agitators who managed to basically rile up 13% of our country to feel outraged that they don't have their own special holiday. It's really not even 13%. Well, it is. Of that 13%, probably 50% are actual minorities, and the other 50% are white women. But that's why we have Juneteenth. I can tell you why. I'm not saying it's a good reason. I'm saying I can tell you why. All right. Today, the Brazil Supreme Court panel unanimously upholds judge's decision to block X nationwide. So they're gone. They're out. Brazilian Supreme Court panel on Monday unanimously upheld the decision of one of his justices to block billionaire Elon Musk's social media platform nationwide. The broader support among justices undermines the effort by Musk and his supporters to cast Justice Alexandre de Moraes as an authoritarian renegade who's intent on censoring political speech in Brazil. No, he's not a renegade. He's part of a completely corrupt system that all of Brazil is run by corrupt justices. I'll say it. That Brazil, you're corrupt. You have a corrupt judicial system. You corrupted your judicial system for your own political aims. It's very simple. It's really, it's not confusing at all. So maybe de Moraes is not a renegade. Maybe he's surrounded by other tyrannical psychos. That's very possible. I'm not disputing that. That's not a mark in de Moraes' favor that there are other clowns running the Brazilian justice system, judicial system. How is that? It's like, oh, you see? Well, it undermines Musk. No, it doesn't undermine Musk. This undermines Brazil. Musk is fine. He'll be fine. This is not undermining Musk at all. It undermines Brazil. I say to you, woe unto you, Brazil. Woe unto you. The panel that voted in a virtual session was comprised of 5 of the full bench's 11 justices, including de Moraes, who last Friday ordered the platform blocked for refusing to name a local legal representative as required by law. It will stay suspended until it complies with his orders and pays outstanding fines that, as of last week, exceeded $3 million, according to his decision. The platform has clashed with de Moraes over its reluctance to block users and has alleged that de Moraes wants an in-country legal representative so that Brazilian authorities can exert leverage over the company by having someone to arrest. So if he names someone as a legal representative in Rio, the next thing you know, that person is going to be arrested. And they're going to say, we'll keep him under arrest here until you start following our policies. All of a sudden now, Elon, they have a hostage that Elon has to feel guilty that this person's going to jail for him. So that's why he's like, no, I'm not giving it to you. They're psychopaths. How is this better than Kim Jong-un? Tell me how this, Putin is the bad guy here compared to Brazil, the enlightened and encultured Brazil. De Moraes also set a daily fine of 50,000 reais, which is $800-900 for people or companies using virtual private networks or VPNs to access X. Unbelievable. So if they catch you sneaking around Brazil and using a VPN while you're in their country, they're going to hit you with a $9,000 a day fine. Some legal experts question the grounds for that decision and how it would be enforced, including Brazil's Bar Association, which said it would request Supreme Court review that provision. But the majority of the panel upheld the VPN fine, with one justice opposing unless users are shown to be using X to commit crimes. So, wow. One person said, I'm only going to go along with it if they're actually doing something illegal. Brazil is one of the biggest markets for X, tens of millions of users. It's block marked a dramatic escalation, a months-long feud between Musk and De Moraes over free speech. Over the weekend, many X users in Brazil said they felt disconnected from the world and began migrating en masse to alternative platforms like Blue Sky and Threads. The suspension has also proceeded to set up a showdown between De Moraes and Musk's satellite internet provider Starlink, which is refusing to enforce the justice's decision. Quote, he violated the Constitution of Brazil repeatedly and egregiously after swearing an oath to protect it, Musk wrote in the hours before the vote, adding a flurry of insults and accusations in the wake of the panel's vote. On Sunday, Musk announced the creation of an X account to publish the justices' sealed decisions that he said he would show that they violated Brazilian law. Now, one of the reasons I was hesitant to cover this story in general is because I sort of feel as an attorney, when I see something that's a legal battle, I always want to be in a position where I can actually walk you through the law. And here, this is a legal battle, but this is a legal battle going on in Brazil, and I'm not going to profess to have any knowledge as to what Brazilian law says. I also have zero inclination to try looking it up and look at some English translation of statutes that are undoubtedly should be written in Spanish to try and walk you through what the law is in Brazil and whether or not these justices are upholding or twisting the law. So I don't know. Maybe this is within the Constitution of Brazil and Musk is wrong. Maybe they're violating it and corrupting the Brazilian Constitution. I don't know. And I'm certainly not going to weigh in on something that I don't know the answer to. I have no idea what's going on there. So I wanted to keep you informed about how this story was developing and why each side was doing what they were doing. But basically, Brazil is trying to control X and control the flow of information that the Brazilian government finds upsetting, because it's basically exposing just how terrible they are. And they're looking for social media platforms to bend the knee to them. And Musk said what he likes to say, which is, go away. But legal experts have said such claims don't hold water. Nothing particular that De Moraes appears to repeatedly endorse his rulings, as they did on Monday. Although his actions are viewed by experts as legal, they have sparked some debate over whether one man has been afforded too much power or if his rulings should have more transparency. This is when they're saying this one man. The first time when I was first reading this sentence, I was like, "Wait, is that one man Musk or De Moraes?" Like, I'm really not sure which one they mean. But I think they mean De Moraes here. Decision to quickly refer to his order for panel approval served to obtain collective, more institutional support that attempts to depersonalize the decision. Yeah. Instead of it being just me telling you that, it's going to be me and my friends telling you that we're not allowing X here. It's horrible. Just horrible. Really, really horrible. This is possible. This is likely true. This is a great point Mark makes here. Rumble and Locals are next on their list. Very possibly true. I don't think that they're quite the same threat to Brazil, but I don't think they're quite the same threat. Let me do a quick peek here around the world. Make sure this thing's on. Is this on? It's on. Okay. That's good. That's good. Whew. So, anyway, I'm curious about your thoughts. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Do you think that Musk, because you can make an argument if you think about it, that they're a sovereign nation. Their social values, morals are different from America, as you would expect. They don't have the same belief in free speech. And that they can set whatever rules they want. And you either operate within the metes and bounds of that rule or stay out. Go away. We don't want you here. And I think that philosophically, you can't say that that's inherently lacking in morality. While I think that it's a more moral position to allow free speech, I can't deny the fact that the levels of freedom of speech we have here are unprecedented, not simply in the world today, but in the really, going back forever in world history. So the fact that the Portuguese folks living down south of the border, south of the equator, where now it's end of winter going into spring, that they have completely different perspectives on morality, free speech, and things of that nature. So it is. It's just the nature of the beast. You can either accept it or not. Essentially, they did tell Elon. I know I said Spanish before. You're right. You're right, Tepi. Brazil's native language is Portuguese. Also, Musk says the order violates Brazil's constitution. I haven't tried to research that myself. I'm certainly not. No one's paying me to do that. No one's paying me to start looking up Portuguese. Let me tell you something. As little Spanish as I know, which is really like fewer than 20 words, there's no si, apoya, contra, la puerte, SOC, KS. That's about it. I don't think I can say 3 words. I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I don't even know what 10 is. Probably something with the D. But, yeah. Like I said, in Casa del Emergencia, the reason I know any Spanish at all is because I've ridden subways in New York, and every sign is in both English and Spanish. My knowledge of Portuguese, I don't think I know 5 words in Portuguese. Yeah, taco. Taco is the Spanish word. What? Casadilla. Oh no, senor. Oh no. I guess, so, yeah. Living La Vida Loca? El Loco? There's probably, if I actually tried doing it, I'd probably come up with like 100 words in Spanish that I know. I probably can come to like 100 words if I really pushed very hard. Cinco de Mayo. There's got to be more. I want this sangria. There you go. There you go. Fajita. No habla español. Gracias. Here's another word, muchos. Butros Ghali. Also, Brazil froze Starlink bank accounts. A fake. The only connection is a common shareholder, Elon. What other reasoning have you found? I think that it's purely about tyrannical control. I just don't know that under the Brazilian constitution, it's not 100% completely legal to engage in tyrannical control, or what we here in America would deem tyrannical control. But, one man's tyranny is another man's safety. So, was it really? Joe, YouTube is blocking super chats tonight. Really? Now I gotta try it. I'm gonna send myself a super chat. Let me see. I was wondering. I was tapping my thing. I was like, is this thing on? What's happening? What's happening here? It's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just, maybe this is just not, maybe. Mic down from where it is -4. We'll leave the sound guy. You want me to turn the mic down? Turn the maybe. When you say -4, Joe, when you say -4, what's hilarious about that is it's I'm basically I have a mic gain thing, which is a sliding thing with no numbers. What is negative? You might as well. If you said -70, I wouldn't know what that like. I would or. I'll go into my audio studio and I'll try to push my mic down because this is my mic volume is up on that thing. Maybe this is better. Maybe that's better. Thank you. I hope that's better. But now I gotta check. Now I'm more self-conscious about it. Let's hear this. I don't hear anything. Let's hear this. Oh, it's good. It's good. I think I'm good now. I don't hear anything. Good. Anyway, so now we all know what's happening in Brazil. Let's hear this. Oh, it's good. Gosh. I think I'm good now. I don't hear anything. Good. That's better. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. Are you prepared for tomorrow's draft, Joe? Are you prepared for tomorrow's draft? All right. Anyway, let's get into, before we get into Tampon Tim, but now everybody knows what's going on in Brazil. I just informed it. I made you a more informed audience. So this way you understand what the fight is about. And frankly, I don't think he's going to win this fight, other than the fact that he'll just be like, "All right, you're not going to let me play by my rules in your country, and you're citizenry are not going to have X, and either they'll be okay with it or they won't be." I don't know. Anyway, I want to share with you before we leave the international scene, and go to exotic, and we'll leave exotic Brazil, which is famous for very little short of Cinco de Mayo. I want to share with you more on the international scene here. More on the international scene from Canadian politics. Here's Trudeau trying to pitch himself as Mr. Donut Guy. As he's trying to campaign to the people. Here he wearing his Trudeau in blue jeans, trying to seem so relatable and getting his glutes handed to him.
We got donuts over here if you want to thank you for your hard work.
I can bring some for my kids here.
Okay. The 25% tariffs we just brought in on Chinese steel is going to help you out.
That's going to keep my job, yeah. What about the
25% tariffs on Chinese steel going to help him keep his job? Okay.
What about the 40% taxes I'm paying, and I don't have a doctor?
40% taxes. 40% taxes. Does he look like a wealthy man to you? This he's doing he looks like he's like what, a construction worker? 40% taxes he's paying.
The $400 million in invest in the card means you're going to have a job for
I think you're only here for another year. We won't see you around probably another year. Yes.
I think you're only here for another year. Is it a derogatory term? What is it a reference to? Was that a bad question? I asked a bad question. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. $400 million of your money that will cycle back to you. so that soon you'll be working for us completely. We'll make sure you have a job and collect 100% of your taxes and raise your taxes to 100%. And you'll have a job. You know what that makes you? That's what slavery is. That's what slavery is. You're not going to have any money, but you'll have a job.
That's what elections are for.
That's right. That's right.
And I look forward to everyone exercising the right to vote.
Yep.
Because we'll count the ballots how we see fit.
Basic choice. We're going to invest in you and your job.
I don't believe you for a second.
Dental care. Do you know anyone who got dental care?
Yeah, I pay for it myself.
Okay.
We're like 3 years
You have a
behind.
job and coverage.
Yeah,
but
four
we got
people in my
seniors.
family.
We've got
Every
seniors.
time we go for a dental visit,
Mhm.
it's costing me about $50 in my pocket per person.
Okay.
Why? I have a good job. You're not really doing anything for us, Justin.
Well, actually, we just invested so 500,000 people haven't been to the dentist.
Yeah.
Got to go to the dentist over the past few
Probably like
months.
my neighbor that doesn't go to work because she's lazy.
You know what?
Oh my God, this guy's not holding back. Yes, this is it's cojones. It's not easy when you're standing face to face with the prime minister to stand up there and basically call him out on being a complete and total clown. And that's why I have mad respect. It's very easy when you could do anyone can sit there and just be some keyboard warrior. No, he's staying face to face with Justin Trudeau, standing here joking, you're ruining Canada's life, and we can't wait to get rid of you. Nick, what happened?
You know
She
what?
doesn't go to work. She lives the same
Most
life I do.
Canadians try to stick up for each other, and that's what we're going to keep doing.
Yeah.
You're gonna stick up for the lazy. You need look. She is lazy. It's true. But don't you care? Don't you care about her? Don't you care?
Good luck and prepare you for
No,
now, sir.
no, I'm good. Thank you.
All right.
Have a nice day.
Have a good day, sir. All right. Right, the other guys got the donuts. Excellent.
He's got to get rid of those. He can't leave until he sells all the donuts. He can't leave until he sells all the donuts. Unbelievable. That's Justin Trudeau. That's one side of the aisle in Canada. Here's the other side of the aisle in Canada. And this guy might be the greatest politician. It's hard to say the greatest politician on earth. But in the international sphere, certainly. This guy's top 5. This guy's top 5. This guy is awesome. Also in Canada. I'm referring, of course, to Canada's own Paul Poilievre, which I know I'm mispronouncing that, and I will never pronounce it properly. It's spelled Poilievre. Poilievre. Veer. Like revere. Poilievre. But I'm sure that's not how I'm positive that's not how it's pronounced. So let's hear him answering a question. You saw how Trudeau, when he answers a question, is like skipping and dancing, and he's like, "But we sent dental to seniors, so you're taking 40% of my money and sending dental to my lazy neighbor. How is that helping me? How are you helping me? You're just eating from me, and like a classic socialist, giving it out to other folks." Here's we'll just call him. What are they? What's the title that they have? MPs? Is that in Britain? I don't even know. I'm so bad when it comes to international politics.
Yes.
What are the steps that need to be taken to fix the damages done to inflation?
What are the steps that need to be taken to fix the damage done to inflation? That's the question that he was asked. It's not Poilievre. Poilievre? Is that really how it's pronounced? Poilievre? I don't believe that. I'm just going to pronounce his last name as Paul Revere. That's how I'm going to pronounce Paul Revere. I think you'll know who I'm talking about if I call him Paul Revere. But I don't put on airs about it, though. I'm very upfront about it. And I'm also equal opportunity ignorant on international politics. I don't understand anything about Canadian politics, British politics, EU politics, Israel politics, Brazilian politics, nothing. Exclusively focusing on the United States of America. just exclusively focusing here. But every once in a while, I see stuff that'll catch my eye, and I figure, okay, you know what? If this relates here in America, let's check it out. So here's Paul Revere explaining to you how inflation works.
First and foremost, stop the overspending. Inflation, high taxes, deficits, high interest rates are all symptoms. The disease is overspending. When governments spend too much money, there's only three ways to get it. One is...
Listen to how, what I love about him is he's not simply based. He's so crystal clear in breaking down exactly how everything, how the spool of thread gets unwound into like this chaotic mess. So he breaks it down. It just so look at this. This whole video is 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and he's going to give him a complete lesson about how inflation works and how everything works in under 2 minutes of answering this question. Well, a little over 2 minutes of answering this question. Just barely 2 minutes. Yeah, I don't care about that. I don't care if the guy's fit. I care that the guy is based and articulate and succinct. He's not talking over anyone's heads. He makes it as simple that anyone can understand.
Governments spend too much money. There's only three ways to get it. One is to raise your taxes. The other is to borrow, which means that they'll tax you more later on. And the third way is to print money. Now, printing money seems like a painless way to pay for things, but it's very simple. If you have 10 apples and $10 in the economy, it's a bucket apple. If you double the number of dollars in the economy to 20, you still only have 10 apples. You're not twice as rich. It's just that each apple costs twice as much. And that is a tax on the working people because it chews up the purchasing power of your paycheck, only to pay for excessive government spending, and it balloons the asset values of the billionaires. So it's a real transfer from the have-nots to the have-yachts. Inflation is the worst and most immoral tax. It always results from government creating cash. Our government has created about $700 billion of cash in the last 3 years. So we used to have $1.8 trillion of bills, coins, and bank deposits.
Which is an astonishingly low number. $1.8 trillion is how much they used to have of just printed Canadian currency in the world. 1.8 trillion. That's what they used to have a couple of years ago.
That was about 3-4 years ago. Now it's up to 2.5 trillion. So that's extra cash, but the economy has only grown by 4%. So the real things in the economy have only grown by 4%. The cash has grown by 40. So the money supply is growing 10 times faster than the stuff money buys, which creates a bidding war. And that's what's driving up inflation. We have to cap government spending with a dollar for dollar law that requires my ministers find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending, so that they go into their departments, find the waste and mismanagement. They want to spend more here, they have to spend less there, or get a bargain here and there to bring both under budget. Then and only then will we stop the money printing, borrowing, and overtaxation and wrestle inflation to the ground. Thank you.
Look at it's like this is a politician who can basically in 2 minutes make any person of average intellect understand exactly why overspending leads directly toward inflation. Very simple example. And obviously it's 1,000 times more complex than that, but that complexity is all built on that simple model of the apples that he provides there. So that's the spelling of his name. Which Shaya Eisenman is saying to me is Poilievre. Poilievre. Thanks for the selfie today. I saw Shaya today when I was out shopping. I bumped into him, and he made a joke about taking a selfie with me. So he's a friend from the community. So, oh, look at this. Some things just popped in here that were not here before. I wonder what's going on. It's weird. All hell, not the leader, which is a double negative. I don't even know what double negative means. I don't know how that's possible. It's twice as negative. It's like if I say something is terrible, and then I say it's super terrible, and then I say it's super duper terrible, So it's obviously making it that much more terrible.
Not terrible. It's not terrible.
This is I don't even understand. I don't understand where that doesn't even make any sense. I can't understand it. I'll be self-conscious for you, Mr. Gig. Thank you. Appreciate that. Oh, yeah, we got this one. And I think Viva pronounced it Poilievre. Yeah, because they just don't pronounce any consonants at the end of their words. That's what it is. Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre. I don't understand how anyone read this. Tell me, how does this is why they say that Russian is the hardest language in the world. Because it doesn't make any sense how this reads as Poilievre. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's a crazy, confusing language. All right. I message you over my favorite video of Poilievre. Yeah, one more on Poilievre. Let me see what we got. Poilievre. I don't see it. Oh. There was a video here before I get into the next story.
The other side.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I didn't realize it was that long. I was just seeing what Brian sent me. And I'm like, that's not what I it's not something I'm going to start tackling now. It's 54 minutes long. This is a famous conversation. This is not a conversation. This is an interview. Since I did share with you Paul Poilievre. When I call this guy, the most base politician, tell me you've seen a politician answer a question with the calm and deal with the calmly dismantling some leftist interviewer while eating an apple. I think I shared this before on my channel, but it's worth a rewatch. So we're gonna do it. We're doing it.
They struggle to actually find young people to do work, and of course, housing is a problem, and healthcare is a problem, as was mentioned earlier. The hospital here gets closed quite frequently. Nothing to do with vaccinations, I don't believe. It's a doctor issue. It's more a shortage of doctors. So, what do you do in the meantime? I mean, you've got lots of plans for building houses, etc. But in the sort of immediate spectrum, what do you do to
create a Blue Seal test to.
Hold on. Oi is wa, like we, so it's Poilievre, but then it's Lié. This is totally Paul Revere. All right.
Quickly licensed the 20,000 immigrant doctors we have in Canada. Many of them are prevented from ever working, and they give up on getting a job as a doctor, and they end up taking low-wage work for the rest of their lives. I'm proposing a simple Blue Seal testing standard that would apply right across Canada. Take the test, get the license, get to work within 60 days.
Okay, and I mean that obviously you're going to encounter some opposition from the College of Medicine, etc., across the provinces.
Yeah,
so how do you deal with that issue?
We push forward. There's not easy street leads to a dead end. Hard roads lead to the best destinations. We're no longer going to accept that this or that gatekeeping bureaucracy stands in the way of obvious common sense solutions. It is unacceptable.
You can understand why the left in Canada hate him, because he's just very calmly. He's very calmly able to think on his feet and just give common sense answers. And one of the things that the left loves to do is to urge their sheep to never dare drinking from the trough of the right. And he's just like, he serves it up so easily that even if it's like skims by your feed, you can't help but just be caught up in like, yeah, that does make sense. Like that sounds like a truth statement there, that the easy road is not really what leads to the best results.
That 20,000 doctors can't work in Canada when we have a massive shortage. And when people come to me and say, yeah, but this or that clerk or bureaucracy is not going to be happy, that's life.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of vested interests and bureaucracies that are going to be very unhappy when I'm prime minister.
Okay. On the topic, I mean, in terms of your sort of strategy,
I love how he keeps eating the apple also. He's very calmly standing there eating an apple. He's very into apples.
Currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
Well, appealing to people's more emotional levels, I would guess. I mean, certainly you tap very strong ideological language quite frequently.
Like what?
Left wing, this and that, right wing. I mean, it's that type of ideological thing.
I never really talk about left or right.
Anyways,
I don't really believe in that.
Okay, a lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
Well, I'm sure a great many Canadians, but
like
like which people? He's being interviewed, and it's like he's basically throwing the interview back in this guy's face just by asking him to explain what his question means. Like what instead of just being caught up in the, if you think about getting a career in politics, if you're ever thinking about it, this is a masterclass in how to deal with a hostile press. Is just make them explain their questions and point out, and that the questions answer themselves by how silly they are.
Who? Like which people would say that?
Well, I'm sure a great many Canadians, but
like who?
I don't know who, but
well, you're the one who asked the question, so yeah. You must know somebody.
Okay, I'm sure there's some out there, but anyways, the point of this question is, I mean, why should Canadians trust you with their vote, given not just the sort of ideological inclination in terms of taking the page out of Donald Trump's book, but
what are you
also
talking about? What page? Can you give me a page? Give me the page. You keep saying
in terms of turning things quite dramatically in terms of Trudeau and the left wing and all of this. I mean, you make quite a it's quite a play that you make on it. So I'm
not sure. I don't know what your question is.
Then forget that. Why should Canadians trust you with their vote?
Common sense. Okay. Common sense for a change. We're going to make common sense common in this country. We don't have.
I don't let you nightly on Yiddish gagging noises, and it's hard. It's hard. I don't speak Polish. Han beget pam muerde. I'm really hoping you didn't just make me like say foul language on my own show. I'm pretty confident that baguette is, I'm pretty sure that's French. Anyway, that's not Spanish, or it's definitely not Portuguese. Poilievre. You're just guessing.
Any common sense in the current government.
Wow.
The guy prints $600 billion, grows our money supply by 32% in 3 years. That's growing the money 8 times faster than the economy. No wonder we have the worst inflation in 4 decades. I'm going to cap spending, cut waste, so that we can balance the budget and bring down inflation and interest rates. You'll want to be able to pay your mortgage again? You want to be able to afford rent? Then you have to vote for Pierre Poilievre, because I'm the only one.
Oh, he said it. There, he said it. Poilievre. That's what he said. Poilievre. He definitely said Poilievre.
Want to be able to afford rent? Then you have to vote for Pierre Poilievre, because I'm the only one with a common sense plan
I'm pretty
that
sure
will
that's how I
bring back
pronounced
the
it.
buying power of your paycheck. Second, I'm going to make work pay. Right now, we punish work. You know, they're asking, why doesn't anybody want to work? Because work doesn't pay. Why would you work when you get punished for working? Our country now punishes work. You make it, Trudeau takes it. I'm going to cut taxes so people bring home more of each dollar they earn. Housing. We have the fewest houses per capita in the G7. Why? Too much bureaucracy. We have the land. We have more land than any other country in the G7. Yet why do we have the fewest houses per capita? Because you can't get anything built. I'm going to require cities boost home building by 15% per year, or they're going to lose federal money. But those that beat my target will get a bonus. So we reward good behavior and punish bad. That's common sense too. We're also going to bring home.
Look at how calm he is. Is he just walking you through simple, basic? Okay, we don't have enough houses here in Canada, so we're going to reward cities that are building more houses, and we're going to punish those who are not. And that seems pretty simple, pretty straightforward. That hey, you're going to get more federal aid if you actually help make our problems get lessened. And if you fail to do that, then we're going to punish you by withholding funds from you. It's pretty logical.
Safe streets. People are going to feel safe in Kelowna. Kelowna is the worst crime in all of Canada after 8 years of Trudeau and Singh. And I'm going to get rid of I'm going to bring in jail and not bail for repeat violent offenders, treatment and not decriminalize crack to bring our loved ones home drug free. And we're going to secure the borders to keep illegal guns out while protecting the rights of lawful, licensed hunters and sport shooters.
Going back to the drug issue, are you?
The dude ruined it for me. He ruined it. Poilievre. What did he say? Poilievre? He said What did I say? I don't even remember what I just said. Poilievre? There was no "ra." That I know. This is not right. Poilievre. I think there was a V in there. Poilievre. Poilievre.
Looking at to put any money into treatment, because that's obviously one of the big things identified.
Absolutely. And that's a great idea. It's the only way out. Treatment is the answer. We need to bring people into beautiful treatment facilities. I think of one facility I visited in Winnipeg recently, where the father of a young man who died of an overdose has created a beautiful facility where they separate the addicts from their addiction, counseling, yoga, sweat lodges for First Nations, a fitness program, a job placement after they leave, and they're building housing right attached to the facility, so that when they graduate, we don't just throw them back out on the street. We put them in supportive housing where they can come back, get some exercise in the gym, see a counselor, and mentor incoming addicts so that they can have a nice, smooth runway to lift off again into a drug-free life.
This is obviously going to cost quite a bit, and there's staffing issues involved in this, presumably.
Yes. So my plan on that is I have a dollar for dollar principle. Every new dollar I spend will have to be matched with a dollar of savings. So I'm going to cut the money the Trudeau government is spending on giving out high-powered opioids. They call it safe supply. It's now clear that it's just being diverted and sold to kids to profit drug dealers and pay for fentanyl. Since this experiment began in BC, we've seen a 300% increase in drug overdose deaths, and 30,000 have died nationwide. I'm going to get rid of that program, put the money into treatment, not new drug handouts. I'm going to stop funding activists and bureaucracies and put it into frontline treatment. And finally, I'm going to sue the big the corrupt pharmaceutical companies who caused the crisis in the first place by flooding the market with OxyContin, which ultimately caused people to become addicted right across North America. The Americans have now recovered $54 billion. We've covered almost nothing in Canada. So I want to recover those billions and put that money into treatment.
Okay, and just going back to cutting taxes and whatnot. Where would you sort of, do you have any targets already in terms of where you would make cuts?
Defund the CBC, save $1 billion, get rid of the ArriveCan app, reduce the monstrous contracting out, stop sending our money to foreign dictators, to terrorists,
He makes it sound so
international
simple.
bureaucracies that waste it on themselves, and bring that money home. We're also going to cap spending so the government doesn't grow, and we're going to use the savings to lower the debt and the taxes.
And who are the dictators and terrorists that Canada is currently giving money to?
Well, President Xi in China gave $250 million to the Asian Infrastructure Bank, which is building pipelines that we don't allow to be built here. He's building them in Asia, bridges, other Asian projects that are designed to reestablish the ancient Silk Route of the Chinese Empire. Why would we pay to establish some kind of imperial silk dynasty with Canadian tax dollars for a communist dictatorship? It's insane. So we want to stop these kinds of giveaways and bring the money home to our own country.
Well, anyway, so there you get a common sense answers from an uncommon politician. That's how you like them apples. Anyway, where was I? I wanted to talk to you all about Tim Walz for a moment. And apparently his brother, who's not, I said not a big fan. Not a big fan at all. But before we get to that, let's hear from this buffoon. There's always like some new, one of the things that the left has been engaging in desperately trying to bump up their poll numbers is what is traditionally referred to as fear porn, where they basically try and get their constituency high on fear and hope that they're going to be like, oh my God, we better save ourselves by making sure that we elect the opponent of this evil guy. Listen to the newest rant from this lunatic.
Somebody said, what's next? Child labor? Hell yeah, it's in there. That's what
The Project 2025, it's in there. Child labor's in there. Sure.
they've got in there. You see states doing that, putting our children at risk.
Putting your children at risk by like what? Encouraging them and inviting them to come across their borders so that they can get their genitalia sliced off, like Governor Tim Walz here. What putting children at risk? What are you talking about?
That's what they'll do.
That's what they'll do. That's next they're gonna. That's what obviously clearly that's what the Republican Party wants. They want child slave labor. That's what they're looking for. That's what this ultimately is about. This is how desperate they are. This is how desperate. You ask this guy a question that he doesn't like. He's like, I'm gonna move on. I don't know how to answer this question.
What's your reaction to the 6 hostages being found dead in Gaza?
What's your reaction to the 6 hostages being found dead in Gaza, Governor Walz? Thanks, everybody. I'm out of here. Unbelievable. I'm out of here. I'm totally engaging you, looking at you, and hear your question. Thanks, everyone. I'm out of here. They didn't give me my talking point on this one. I don't have a talking point on this one yet. They didn't tell me what I'm supposed to say. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. And I know that this is one which I definitely going to get wrong if they don't give me guidance first. So let me just say I'm out of here. Thanks, everyone. A clown. An empty-suited clown. I guess there is not wearing a suit. So it's just a stuffed shirt clown. Stuffed t-shirt clown. Well, apparently not everyone is convinced that Governor Tim Walz, or as the left loves to call him, Coach Walz, and I actually think of as being Mr. Psycho. There's a movie there's a horror movie in the 80s or 90s, Dr. Giggles, which is likely appropriate for him. I genuinely believe in my heart of hearts that this guy's a psychopath. I do. I think he's probably psychotic. Justin, Tim Walz's brother, says he's considering joining forces with Trump. Says his brother is not the type of character you want making decisions about your future. It's his brother, Jeff. Jeff Walz's Facebook profile was discovered by Laura Loomer, who found several stunning posts. Quote, the stories I could tell. Not the type of character you want making decisions about your future, he said in a comment. I am positive this is true. I am positive this is true. That behind closed doors, I'm telling you now, I am in my heart of hearts, I obviously have no more evidence than any of you have. So no one should mistakenly think, I have some sort of inside info. I don't. It's clearly just what I see in his eyes, what I see from his little micro actions or glances or things, the way he talks. I'm telling you now, there's a sort of this red flag that's kicking me that this guy is a psycho who should never be left alone with any kind of kids or anyone who's under his jurisdiction. So when I read this today, I was like, I'm not at all surprised by this. Not at all surprised by this. His brother basically knows the scoop on him. Haven't spoken to him in 8 years. I'm 100% opposed to all his ideology. My family wasn't given any notice. They were selected and denied secret security in the days after. Now, I'll tell you this much. Frankly, I don't really see why the vice president or a potential vice president, someone running for the vice presidency, would be getting a security detail. I don't personally believe. This is where I'm going to basically say, even though this could be an avenue I would stroll down if I was inclined to just pump up whatever anti-Democrat arguments I could. I would be sitting there saying, leaving him exposed. But that's not the type of product I ever want to put out there. So I'll tell you right now, I'm giving my honest opinion as I always do. I don't understand why he would be getting security. Why Jeff Walz, brother of Tim Walz, would all of a sudden now be getting a security detail. That just seems to be broadening out grossly that who it is that we're looking at as being in danger. It's not like he's no one even heard of this guy. No one even heard of him. You tell me now because his how many siblings does Tim Walz have? Do you know? No one knows. Nobody knows. So someone's going to go and try and take a shot at some sibling that no one ever heard of before? Doesn't make any sense. All the comments stemmed from a March 30, 2023 post after Trump was convicted, where Jeff Walz said, quote, he wasn't convicted. That's where he was indicted. March 30, 2023. That's when the first indictment dropped. So that was a typo there. And he was indicted where Jeff Walz said, quote, we've just become a third world banana republic. This is the actual post. Have you talked with your brother? Haven't spoken to him in 8 years. I'm 100% opposed to all his ideology. My family wasn't giving any notice that he was sentenced, selected, and denied security in the days thereafter. Help MAGA. Get on stage with President Trump and endorse him. Help save the country. I've thought hard about doing something like that. I'm torn between that and just keeping my family out of it. The stories I could tell, not the type of character you want to make decisions about your future. So I don't expect him to actually join the campaign trail with Trump because to be fair, there are lunatics on the left, a great number of lunatics on the left, far more so than there are on the right. And there are a handful on the right, not going to kid you. But there are lunatics on the left. And yeah, if he comes out bashing Tim Walz, he will need the security detail. He will. So I can understand him saying, I don't want to do that. I don't know if I care that much. I hope he does. I hope he comes out and shares all the dirt. If he does, I'll certainly bring it to your attention. But there he is. Now, I do want to share with you that if he does come out, this is how he's going to be attacked. In case you're wondering, what's the backstory with this Jeff Walz? What's the dealio with Jeff Walz? Well, here's the breakdown, courtesy of Style Magazine, which is where everyone goes to get all their good information. Obviously, it is where I'm going today for you. This is my source for you. So, who is Tim Walz? Donald Trump's supporting brother Jeff Walz. This is obviously going to be an attempt to take him down as being like some meaningless guy. The Floridian is estranged from the vice presidential nominee. He says he's 100% opposed to his ideology and once stole from Walmart. They want to try and get him any way they can. He's a thief. I don't know. Maybe he was part of like the BLM riot. Who knows? Who knows? Tim Walz's estranged older brother Jeff has revealed he does not agree with his siblings' views, according to a number of damning Facebook comments made last week, as reported by the New York Post. I'm 100% opposed to ideology, Jeff 67 shared on August 30th about Kamala Harris's running mate per the source. Apparently, he's even considered publicly endorsing him, as we read. As reported by the Post, Jeff hasn't spoken to his younger brother in 8 years. In fact, he even revealed that his brother didn't update him when he was picked as Harris's running mate. My family wasn't given any notice he was selected. He told the Post he would not be doing any interviews. What's his background? What's his story? According to Today, Jeff is one of 4 siblings. See, you didn't know that there were 4 siblings. You didn't know that. Born to parents Darlene and James F. Walz. We don't know anything about Tim Walz. No one does. So we don't know how many bodies he's got that are breathing, barely breathing, or long since finished breathing that are stored in his basement. The same outlet adds, and there might be 0. Could be. I don't know. Maybe he disposes them in a forest. Who knows? Just kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. Same outlet adds that they grew up in Nebraska with Tim, Jeff, and their sister Sandy Dietrich, all graduated from Chadron State College. Okay. The youngest brother, Craig Walz, died tragically aged just 43 when a tree fell on his campsite during a storm in 2016. That is pretty horrible. Per the New York Post, Jeff Walz was accepted into National Research Program at Chadron. And when is it? I don't know. Do you guys know if it's Chadron or Chadron? Do you guys know? Do you guys know? You don't know. He was a school assistant principal. Okay. Like his brother Tim, Jeff used to work in the education sector. Per the Independent, he was an assistant principal at Citrus County Middle School in Florida in the early 2000s, according to public records obtained by New York Post. He and his wife Lori also owned a musical instrument and equipment store called So Fine Music in Inverness from 2000. Inverness? I've seen it before, but I'm not sure it's pronounced. Inverness. From 2001 to 2010, Jeff Walz was arrested for stealing, and this is what you'll hear about from the left if his name actually breaches into that their iron bubble that they have there, because if you're sitting there on the left, you are certainly cloistered in most of them. Not all of them, if you manage to escape, but most of them are cloistered in an iron dome type bubble chamber, just to echo and repeat and reverberate whatever nonsense is floating around in there. So if somehow stories about Jeff Walz attacking Tim Walz manage to seep in there, what they're going to be telling you about, what they're going to be telling their sheep is, while Tim Walz was arrested for drunk driving in 2005, and I'm not making light of that. Drinking and driving is terrible, actually. To me, that's far worse. And subsequently pled guilty to a reduced charge of reckless driving, per the Independent. His brother Jeff also had run-ins with the law, as reported by the Tampa Bay Times. Jeff pleaded guilty to theft for allegedly stealing a bicycle tube, handlebar grips, and 3-way outlet adapter totaling $13. $13 from a Walmart store in 2001. So he stole $13. I don't even know what to make of that. But I have a feeling that the left will try to make hay out of that $13 theft. He donated to Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Jeff has previously shown his support for U.S. President Donald Trump. According to the Post, the registered Republican donated $20 to the Apprentice alums 2016 campaign. And when he said we've just become a third world banana republic on March 31st, the day after Trump was indicted. Someone asked if he talked to his brother. I don't know if he replied. I guess well, he hasn't spoken to him in 8 years, so the answer is probably no. What's more, March 30th, 2023, same day Trump was indicted, there he is saying we became a third world banana republic, and he's a dog lover. That is a handsome dog. Jeff has a few posts on his Facebook page, but one that remains is a tribute to his dogs. Miss these guys, he said in 2022. Caption of his reshare post in 2014. He's married with children. There you go. The post also reported that Jeff is married, father living in Freeport, Florida. His wife's name is Lori. She reportedly Facebook friends with Jeff's siblings, Tim, Walz, and Sandy Dietrich. Photos on Jeff's Facebook page show him sail fishing in Costa Rica, going to the beach, and visiting Disney World's Tree of Life. So there you go. That's your background story on this guy. I have no doubt that if he is, that there's tons of dirt on him. Tons of dirt. Anyway, let's start working our way to our featured story. Let's start working our way toward our featured story. I'll bring this story to you the way it came to me.
Current law.
And it came to me by this post. It was courtesy of Josh Dunlap sharing this post that I watched, and I was like, I thought I heard something about this. It actually relates to a law that was passed nearly 2 months ago in Michigan. And it's the focus of tonight's show.
Current law regarding the Board of Canvassers is very clear. I'm not going to take the time to read every section out of the law currently, but it's very, very clear that in a case of a recount, if somebody says...
See, I saved this for when I was going to get there, which you only sent it like 10 minutes ago. So we were very close there. Poilievre has a stuck box in his office, but has few Jews in his constituency. All right. Last Walz. Who knows?
Suspects fraud, they are able to bring that to the Board of Canvassers. The Board of Canvassers are permitted to investigate fraud. Contrary to everything I've been hearing on the other side of the aisle, in posts, the media not covering it, it is clear as a bell that if there's allegations of fraud in a recount, that the Board of Canvassers have currently the ability to investigate fraud. They also have currently the ability to subpoena. They have subpoena power. It's very clear.
That's a very important power, which you really need from an independent body. The ability to investigate and see whether or not something is awry. This is basic in a functioning republic, that you have people who are empowered to investigate corruption.
Clear in the law currently, despite what the other side says and despite the fact that the media will not print any of this for the public to be aware of. This bill, 603, removes that ability from the Board of Canvassers.
So the Board of Canvassers is the agency which is supposed to be canvassing Michigan elections to ensure that they are being run properly and that the ballots are legitimate, little things like that, rather than just, monopoly money that has a name scribbled on it. That's what the Board of Canvassers is supposed to be doing.
It is a big change. What they put in instead is, well, if you suspect fraud, turn it over to the hyper-partisan Attorney General, I'm sure.
Dana Nessel. Dana Nessel is one of the people who went after the fake electors for trying to commit fraud by publicly announcing that we are submitting these signatures here for review to Congress in case Michigan ends up winning the election, and we want to meet the safe harbor date. Some of you may recall that in December 2020, when there was all sorts of issues related to various states' elections, including the great state of Michigan, and there was all sorts of issues about questions about dumps of ballots that came into Michigan and people in Detroit putting up boards to block anyone from the outside being able to watch what was going on while they were counting, and how the vote surged with just pallets of ballots that came in the middle at 4 o'clock in the morning, and these shady vehicles showing up there, which somehow ended up being 99-2 for every 101 ballots that came in there. And you sort of wonder how the two managed to slip in there. And there was just tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of votes that just start pouring on in, which all of a sudden Biden takes the lead in the middle of the night. So that's all the issues that raised and all the investigations that were ongoing, all the complaints from people, from workers there. You might remember one woman who was working there in the and testified in front of the Michigan, I think it was the Michigan House, a committee for the Michigan House, about some of the illicit conduct that she saw going on in Detroit, where they were putting the same stacks in over and over again because it wouldn't read, and they would end up putting the entire thing in just because one wouldn't read. And they tend to be from counties that were heavily favoring Biden, amongst other issues that were going on in the great state of Michigan. So when they were reaching their safe harbor dates on or about, I want to say December 16th, but it's hard to remember because different states have different safe harbor days, that by this drop dead deadline, you must send in, the slate of electors must submit their vote to Congress. Otherwise, it won't count under state law. So there's an alternate slate of electors that submitted their vote on behalf of Trump. Well, after the election was successfully, from the perspective of those on the left, successfully obtained by Joe Biden, one way or another, that they decided now is the time for us to flex our hand, and Attorney General Dana Nessel from the great state of Michigan decided, I'm going to try prosecuting these people for engaging in fraud. I went through the charges that were raised against those electors because I was kind of horrified to think that you're claiming fraud here when fraud means you're trying to deceive people, and nobody here there was never an attempt by anyone to deceive anybody. It's not like they forged the governor's signature that it was certified. They made clear, here's our vote. We're filling out these forms in case sometime over the next week, 2 weeks, Michigan gets its act together and figures out that, hey, a lot of those pallets of ballots are invalid. And if that were to happen after the safe harbor dates, we would no longer be able to submit this because they'd say, well, it's after the date. Even though Trump won the state, too late. What can you do? So they submitted that alternate slate of electors from Michigan. Dana Nessel says, you're committing fraud. That's a crime. We'll throw you in jail. So hyperpartisan Dana Nessel is now the person who's overseeing the integrity of Michigan's elections.
If it's a Republican making that claim, it's going to get a thorough investigation. Or turn it over to the
Who's saying that facetiously?
Turn it over to the hyper-partisan Attorney General. Oh, I'm sure if it's a Republican making that claim, it's going to get a thorough investigation. Or turn it over to the hyper-partisan Democrat prosecutors within the big cities where the majority of the votes are. Oh, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of investigation of fraud from those individuals. It is being done after 70 years of having this system. All of a sudden, we have to strip the power from these board of canvassers. They say, well, there's never been an example where it was used. Completely untrue. In the 2020 election, we first in 2016, I believe in Detroit, it was 72% of the precincts couldn't be recounted, mostly for an overcount. For a whole series of
overcount, meaning there's more votes from this county than registered voters here, which you cannot have. First of all, it's impossible to have 100% that every person voted. No one missed it. Not a single person missed it. But it's definitely impossible to have more people there than registered voters. Oh, who cares? Let's just let them all in. Instead of that, should raise a red flag that, hey, probably a good 15 to 20% of the ballots that came from here are crap, not true, not accurate, illegitimate ballots that are being counted the same as anyone else's legitimate ballots.
Of issues, broken open ballot boxes. So we gave them more time and money. And what happened in 2020? It went from, I believe, the 72% to 79%. How can this happen?
I said this number is 79% for Michigan. I'm pretty sure I said that. I might have said 86 at one point. Maybe I said 86, but I might have been confusing with someone else with a different state.
So these very astute Board of Canvassers for Wayne County said, we want to find out what happened.
The Board of Canvassers, meaning the investigative body that's supposed to be looking into legitimacy of those votes and certifying off on it, they said, hey, let's do an investigation.
Happened then. They had a tsunami of death threats. Of all the death threats that I've heard bantied around, the absolute worst I have ever heard was against that Wayne County Board of Canvassers. A female who was doxxed, her daughter was doxxed. They sent horrific things to the mother. One of them was a tortured, bloody, murdered little girl the same age as her daughter, and said, if you don't vote for this, is going to happen to your daughter. Now, of all the threats I've heard, nothing have I heard is more despicable, disgusting than that. If that had been...
That should be someone who goes to prison for decades. Someone who sends something like that to a Republican or a Democrat. Someone who sends something like that to someone should spend decades in prison.
Me as a parent, I don't know what I would have done. So what did the law enforcement do? They waited 4.5 years to look at this case and investigate this case. And the most severe threat I've ever heard, verbal written threat, she was given 5 days of suspended sentence.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, this place is so frigging, Michigan is so corrupt. I know he said 4.5 years. It must be 3.5 years because everything happened in December of 2020 and we're 3.5 years removed from that. So I believe he misspoke on that.
This is what's happening in terms of real, true threats going on here. And the people who had the ability to the investigation stripped out, gone with this bill. After 70 years of this bill, the Democrats have stripped out the ability of the Board of Canvassers to investigate fraud in a recount and to get subpoena power. And now you refer it off to these hyper-partisan individuals who will never prosecute this. This is an outrage that we have had this bill passed. I don't know what to do in terms of expressing to the people here in the state of Michigan why the Democrats are doing this now. 70 years of a bill that has worked well, and the Democrats stripped the provisions out to stop fraud. I think the people here in the state of Michigan know why the Democrats have done this today. Thank you. I'd like my comments.
So there you go. There you go. I assume that was said at some council meeting or something of that nature. I assume he's just a frustrated Michigander who's venting himself and expressing himself rather well. All right. All right. How's the left defending this? How is the left trying to defend this bill? As being, oh, everything's fine here. What are you complaining about? Everything's fine. Everything's totally fine. What are you so worried about? You're just a bunch of worry warts. You're just a bunch of Karens. My God, what are you so worried? This is how the left is sitting here trying to defend this idiocy. Michigan bill does not prohibit recounts based on allegations of election fraud. Oh, really? Oh, that's very heartwarming. Very heartwarming. Claim. This is by Melissa Golden. She's trying to just calm yourselves. Calm yourselves. A bill signed into law this week by Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer prohibits vote recounts based on election fraud allegations. That's what she's saying the claim is. This claim right here, by the way, is garbage. That is not what the issue is. This is not what the issue is. One of the ways these fact checkers like twisting truth so that they can say, oh, you see, it was checked out by fact checkers. Everything's okay here. What are you so upset about? Fact checkers like Melissa Golden from the AP. They twist a word or two here or there to try. This is one of the common tactics, not the only tactic, but this is one common tactic, is that they'll just change a word here or there. So this way they could say, nope, your claim is false. It's false. Look through this sentence and see if you can figure out where she twisted a word here in order to say this claim is not true. It's not true. I'll give you a moment. Read through it. A bill signed into law this week by Michigan Governor Whitmer prohibits vote recounts based on election fraud allegations. All right, there's your moment. So, the bill does not prohibit recounts. It allows recounts. They're not prohibited. It allows for them. But A, recounts are not the issue. It's actually checking the legitimacy, having an audit to ensure that the ballots are legitimate. If you take a whole bunch of fake ballots and stuff them into a box and cram them into the box, shove them into a box, and then you take it and you say, okay, now let's start counting. And a lot of them are fake. A lot of them are and then you start counting them. And you're like, oh, look at this, everyone. Oh, Democrat won. Can you believe it? What a nice surprise. Oh, you see, democracy wins. Democracy wins. And people come along, start complaining, but like, whoa. Where those ballots there? I'm looking at some of them. They're not even they're like a different color paper. What the heck are you talking about here? What's going on here? Those are not legitimate ballots. Those are fake ballots. Like, oh, okay. You think it's fake? All right. Let's count them again. 1, 2, 3. And they count the same fake ballots over and over again because the bill doesn't stop you from recounting. You can recount all you want. You just can't take out any of the bad ones. You're not allowed to audit to make sure, wait, this one's not good and this one's not good. In fact, hey, you got over here 40,000 of them that are complete and total bogus. You got 100,000. You got 400,000 that are total bogus here. Oh, we're going to count those 400,000. Well, under the law, you're allowed to recount. And we're recounting. Same ballots over and over and over. So we get tired of recounting. Say, look, we keep winning on the recount. So that's how she frames this. The people are claiming that it stops them from recounting. No, this is false. The bill SB 603 does not prohibit such recounts. You can have recounts. According to 2 state senators involved in updating the laws around recounts, it stipulates that candidates may request a recount if they have a good faith belief that they would have a reasonable chance to win the election, if not for an error in the vote counting process. No one cares about the vote counting process. It's the vote qualifying process that's the issue. That means that the number of votes the petitioning candidate requests to be recounted must be greater than the difference of votes between that and the winning candidate. After Queen Gretchen Whitmer signed the bill, social media users misrepresented what it will mean for the ability to obtain recounts. It's not about obtaining recounts. Holy F. And maybe this person misstated it. She signed bills into law that will prohibit election recounts conducted due to elections of voter fraud. It's get rid of the bad ones and then recount. Reads one post that received approximately 43,000 likes and 23,000 shares as of Friday. Democrats will stop at nothing to prevent election fraud from being exposed. Yep. That's a true statement. But recounts can still be initiated by fraud allegations. Who cares? They say the bill was written to make obtaining a comprehensive recount easier. If there's a legitimate reason to believe it would change the result of an election and to prevent frivolous ones. It also clarifies how suspected fraud should be investigated. Yeah, you know how it gets investigated? When it's suspected fraud? By Dana Nessel, Attorney General. The governor's Attorney General is the one who investigates. She doesn't write that part here. That's the part she omits when she's calling this fraud. This whole piece about fraud is just honestly based on a lot of misinterpretation, which I think is some of it is probably intentional misinterpretation, said Stephanie Chang. Said Queen Liar Stephanie Chang, Bill's primary sponsor. Jeremy Moss, primary sponsor, companion bill SB 604, explained that the 603 does the opposite of what claims to be spreading online alleged. Yeah? Why is it turning all the power to investigate the Dana Nessel? It's modernizing the law so that all the ballots can be subject to a recount. No one cares about your stupid recounts. Oh, look over here. We don't just have monopoly money in here. There's some life money with the name with the name Kamala Harris on it also. Okay, this is good too. Doesn't have to be monopoly money. We got some ballots, we got some monopoly money, we got some life money. Someone get the payday. Someone get out. We're out of life money. Get out your payday. This is making the integrity of elections results stronger. So it's subjecting more, if not all, ballots in a given election to a recount. No one cares about your recounts. No one cares. No one cares. But this is how the left loves to lie. And they think everyone's too stupid to see through it. That's what it's like. They think like, oh, everyone's too stupid to see through this. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So what are you supposed to do if there's fraud there? What are you supposed to do if there's actual fraud that happens there? And the only person who's able to call it fraud, say these ballots are garbage, is the person who's printing it themselves. And that's the law now in Michigan. What are you supposed to do? I don't have an answer for you. If you think if you came here hoping Joe's going to give us a cure, I don't have no cure. I got no cure for this. I have no cure. There's no cure. Unless there's some sort of constitutional relief that helps protect and says that this law is invalid. And then you're going to be reliant on whatever judges are sitting in the high court in Minnesota to invalidate this law. Good luck pumping that through between now and November also. Good luck with that. Good luck. Well, we'll take a quick look at it because I actually pulled this law up here. Just to see I'm not making this up. This is it right here. SB Enrolled Senate Bill 603. We're not going to read through it because, frankly, it's a lot of words and it's kind of boring. And much of it is not relevant. We do a search for a word fraud. So we say, okay, what happens with respect to investigating fraud, claims of fraud? What happens in those scenarios? So you pull it up here. The way you do that, if you don't want to read the entire thing. Oh, look at this. I already did it. Fraud comes up once. Let's see where it comes up. Right here. If a board of canvassers conducting a recount has a good reason to believe that any fraud or violation law has been committed in the canvass or return of votes, then that board of canvassers shall, subject to subsection 2, refer any matter the board of canvassers believes warrants investigation to the following. A, for a recount conducted by board of canvassers so they can count the same monopoly money all over again. Prosecuting attorney of the county in which the board of canvassers is appointed, so you can go to that prosecuting attorney for a recount conducted by the board of state canvassers, the attorney general. If you have a problem, so you can go. So you have a problem that you're saying, hey, I want to recount based on fraud. You can go to your local prosecutor, your local appointed prosecutor, Democrat, and say, hey, can you make sure that you ran this election which reelected you properly, that there wasn't fraud in there? Go there, which is basically the state of Michigan telling its constituents, if you want us to actually, if you want us to actually, try and clean up the mess that we ourselves made, as Elon would say, go away. Horrifying. And if you think it's not easy, you think it's tricky. It's tricky to figure out how to engage in fraud in an election. If you think that's a challenge, I'm going to point you to this beautiful video here, courtesy of my good friend Nate the lawyer, which we're going to watch together. This is actually fraud by a Republican that I'm going to share with you, because it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat. We should all be concerned about integrity in our elections.
Authorities say they have busted a voter fraud scheme surrounding a Republican primary race in Queens.
The suspects, 6 campaign staffers of a former city council candidate in 2023.
So how did they get away with it? And did they impact the results of the election?
So I know you've probably heard American elections are super secure and mail-in and absentee voting is the wave of the future. But in New York City, they just found out that it's not as safe as they thought it was. Let's talk about it. Okay, so today we're tackling something that cuts into the heart of our democracy and what many people have been concerned about for years: election fraud. Now, I know as soon as you start talking about election fraud, being able to change the outcome of elections, you're kind of put into this space where you're considered a conspiracy theorist. Now, whenever I cover these election cases or these election fraud cases, I like to point out how before the presidential election of 2020, the media was covering things like voting machines, how they were unreliable, how there were issues with it. And then after the election, they essentially flipped and said everything was okay. Here's an example.
Yep. Yep. All of a sudden, what problems? Why would anyone think there are problems?
This is
That's conspiracy thinking.
Yes, public broadcasting systems in the United States. And they're extremely left-wing. Now, this is what they were saying about Georgia's election system before the election of Joe Biden in 2020. So check this out.
But election security experts working for the plaintiffs in the lawsuit against the state have uncovered several troubling issues. Alex Halderman looked closely at the QR codes where the votes are encoded for the scanner.
By analyzing the structure of the QR codes, I've been able to learn that there's nothing that stops an attacker from just duplicating one. And the duplicate would count the same as the original barcode.
And in late September, another concern came to light. During testing, election workers found half the names of the 21 candidates for Senate intermittently disappeared from screens during the review phase.
Whoops! Whoops!
Dominion sent out a last-minute software patch.
I'm worried that
See, that's when they were reporting this, no one had ever heard that name before, Dominion. Dominion sent out a last-minute software patch. Everything's kosher now. Don't worry, everything's crystal clear. Everything perfect. It's perfect. We sent a patch. We made a patch just for you. We made a patch. There's a patch.
Georgia system is the technical equivalent to the 737 MAX. They've just made a last-minute software change that might well have unintended consequences and cause even more severe problems on a.
And then they sent a plane with 5 million people on it. There you go. There you go. That's what they did. Last minute patch to a 737. Load it up with 5 million people and send them flying off. Everything's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Election day.
The Secretary of State says post-election audits will bring any QR code discrepancies to light.
Oh, the audits. Oh, is that what we're going to have? We're going to have audits? Is that what we're going to have to fix this problem? Audits? No, okay.
We're in the process of really, continue to expand the capabilities that we have so we can audit more of the races. When we do the audit, we actually do it on the human readable portion, not on the QR code.
Now, remember, that was before the 2020 election. Then after the 2020 election, the news media kind of flipped the script and said, hey, there's nothing to see here. Georgia systems work perfectly and we have no issues. Now, that made things a little confusing because they were sounding the alarm before the election. Then after the election, they're saying there's nothing to see here. So obviously, people are going to be skeptical about the integrity of the Georgia election systems.
If you're not yet subbed to Nate the Lawyer, please do so. I'm going to actually throw this in here into the description and a pump for my good friend here, because I'm not looking to eat his views, but I figure I'm just exposing him to that many more people.
Because the media said there may be a problem. Now, with that being said, let's move it back to what's happening in New York. Now, the main issue here is election fraud. Now, if you're thinking, Nate, what exactly does that mean? Stick with me. I got you. Election fraud is when someone messes with the election process, usually tampering with votes, changing the outcome. It's a serious crime because it messes with the foundation of our democracy. And in this case, 6 individuals are facing a real long time in prison for doing just that. Okay, so let me take you back to March 2023. Sidney Pai, the daughter and campaign treasurer of James Pai, came up with a scheme to win the election for her father. Now, James Pai was running for a city council seat and had to win his primary to go to the general election. Now, Sidney Pai then recruited 5 other campaign officials, and they came up with a very interesting scheme. Now, the 6 defendants allegedly visited the New York City Board of Elections in Queens, New York. They picked up ballots for voters who purportedly wanted to cast absentee ballots in the June 2023 primary.
Oh, they can just show up there and pick up absentee ballots for folks. Interesting.
Now, prosecutors allege that the crew filled out these absentee ballots and submitted them to be counted. Now, Pai's opponent reported to city officials that there was an extremely large amount of absentee ballots this cycle, and they all happened to be favoring James Pai.
Normally, you might expect 10% or even 20% of the votes to come via absentee ballots. But here, the numbers of absentee ballots were massive, and those absentee ballots were weighted heavily in favor of James Pai.
The margin of victory in the primary was just 181 votes.
Yeah, so like half the votes are absentee. They're all for James Pai, and he wins by 180 votes. Okay.
Now, alone, this is not enough to overturn the election result,
which is horrifying.
These could be actual voters. Maybe James Pai focused on getting out absentee ballots. Then another piece of evidence hit that made it clear that these votes were fake. See, a voter actually showed up on election day to vote, but poll workers told this voter that they had already voted, and they voted for James Pai. Now, the Queens District Attorney.
So this is Dropout Recruiter says this story I talked about massive fraud equals only 23 votes for a candidate in Republican primary for city council seat in New York. Then he lost with half the votes of the Democrat incumbent. So what I want to point out is they know of 23 of them, but the absentee ballots were insanely high. So more than 20%, like much more than 20%. That guy doesn't give a number as to what the percent is, but it's more than 20% in an area which has presumably tens of thousands of votes. So even if it's 8,000 votes, so you're basically saying 2,000 or 1,000 of them are mail-in ballots. They found 23 instances that they know of. Now, if it was the left who had committed this, they'd be like, well, that's not enough. It's 23 votes. Not enough. It doesn't prove vote. That's not enough to change the outcome. The outcome was 181. So take out those 23 votes. That's what the left would say. That's what they did say. I know what they would say because that's what they did say in 2020. The point that I'm making at here is there are countless ways. The reason I'm sharing this is to point out that there are countless ways to cheat that are opened up by use of mail-in ballots.
After getting this complaint from this voter, began an investigation on how this voter's absentee ballot was put in, but the person says they didn't actually vote. Now, after the Queen's DA started looking into it, they interviewed multiple individuals whose names and personal information were listed on ballot applications. But each one of these individuals claimed that they didn't request, fill out, or even sign the absentee ballot application. Then, after being shown pictures of the people who went to the election office to pick up their absentee ballots, they said that they never met those people and they never authorized them to pick up any ballots for any of them. Now, at the end of the day, the Queen's DA found that the defendants had done this to 23 people, where they submitted their names for absentee ballots, even though the defendants were not authorized to do so.
It's one reason so many leave China to live in the United States. Free and fair elections. But tonight,
I gotta start talking like a reporter coming to share with you the story. It's the reason so many Chinese people move to the United States. I was looking at my numbers. Okay. I'm looking at my numbers here and I'm like, oh my God, this is just a disaster. There's a disaster here. I mean, look at this. Like it's like a plane that's like crashing. It's almost like, this is like horrifying. Horrifying. Look at this. 102, 145, and this was back before 3 weeks earlier. It was 102, 400. It's crashing, and I know it's not organic. I know it's YouTube. I'm always hesitant to bring this up because I know that by the time I pull this down, it'll be 101, 789. I know how you all work. Okay, I know it. But the point is, first of all, like and subscribe, please. I had maybe I just need to talk more like a classic investigative reporter who's sharing with you this story right here on Good Logic. Why do they all talk like that? I don't understand it. I don't get it. I guess it works.
Authorities say they have busted.
Anyway, so we'll just finish that up because everybody's stolen this far from him.
Victims of election fraud. 6 people are charged tonight with falsely applying for absentee ballots, then stuffing the ballot boxes with them. Prosecutors say all were on the volunteer campaign staff of Yu Ching James Pai, who went on to win last year's Republican primary in the 20th New York City Council District. As alleged in this case, said DA Melinda Katz, the defendants went to the Board of Elections and filed fraudulent absentee ballot applications on behalf of 23 voters they had never met. Among those indicted is the former candidate's 19-year-old daughter and former campaign treasurer.
There must be a school where they teach people to talk like this, because you've never had a conversation with someone who talks like that. Nobody says, this morning I ate Cheerios. No one does that. Followed with a hearty breakfast of sausage and eggs.
Sidney Pai was arraigned today, along with 4 others on charge.
That's his daughter. In case you lost track of the story, his daughter Sidney Pai was the one who was behind all and collected the absentee ballots. The only way that they would have a difficult time tracking down the perpetrator here is if they were really racist. I'll let you insert your own joke. But apparently they were able to identify Sidney Pai. And they said, got a feeling we understand what's been going on here.
Charges of illegal voting, filing false instruments, and falsifying business records.
And remember, as we heard earlier, there were a lot of these absentee ballots that were put in.
Normally, you might expect 10% or even 20%.
What is the percent
of the votes to come via absentee
but
ballots?
We got here.
But here, the numbers of absentee ballots were massive.
What's
and those
massive?
Absentee ballots were.
Why doesn't he give a number? Give a percentage.
Weighted heavily in favor of James Pai.
Was it 22%? Was it 60%? I want to know numbers.
The margin of victory in the primary was just 181 votes.
So now this is where things get very, very complicated. See, James Pai's victory in the Republican primary was only 181 votes. Do you think Pai's victory was legitimate? Now, all 6 people were arrested and arraigned in Queens Supreme Court and charged.
That courthouse they were showing there, I've been there many times. Many a time. So I felt like I was going home when I saw this video.
Charged with things like possession of a forged instrument, falsifying business records, and illegally voting. Now, all 6 pleaded not guilty, but if they're convicted, they can...
Possibly true. And like I said, if they were Democrats, they would say, well, 23 votes is not... That's not the difference in the election. You still need another 160 before, it matters. Because the margin was 181. That's what it would be if it was Democrats. But as Republicans, and Republicans cheat at all, it's everyone in the country needs to know about it. My point was not to say that, James Pai is a horrible person, or even that his daughter, whatever her first name was, is a horrible person. I'm simply saying, even though it is corrupt, definitely, I'm not looking to defend their corruption. I'm simply saying there's a lot of ways to cheat if you have mail-in ballots. That I didn't even think. The reason I was watching this initially today is because I was like, "Well, how did they do it? What steps did they take?" I'm wondering, because this way we could try and figure out what the left may try to do.
Spend up to 7 years in prison. Now, the candidate James Pai was not charged in this case. Now, at the end of the day, this is a crazy case because this is the horrors that Republicans have been saying over the years with absentee and mail-in voting. Right? How do we know that vote is actually legitimate if you can't vet the person who's actually filling out the ballot. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. You had people fraudulently going and picking up absentee ballots, filling it out, and sending it in as if they were the voter. So now, as you can see, New York's mail-in voting system may need to be rehauled to make sure there's some security put in place so this doesn't happen again, because it looks like this election may have been swayed by fake absentee ballots.
I didn't take anything against me. I understood that you were what the point you were getting at here. And here's the point that the reason I shared this video. The reason I think it's important is because if this happens in Michigan, the only persons to investigate it are the very, very hyper-partisan potential beneficiaries of corruption. The Board of Canvassers has been stripped of the power to conduct an audit and see whether or not the votes themselves are legitimate. At best, they can trigger a recount of those same fraudulent ballots. That doesn't help anything. It doesn't help actual integrity here. Michigan has bent over backwards to ensure that there's absolutely no transparency of integrity, and all of it is left in the hands of the very corrupt people who we suspect are the ones who are behind this fraudulent scheme. So you tell me, how is there any potential salvation for Michigan? I don't have an answer. And that's what I'm going to tell you right now. Whatever you think you're seeing in polls in election doesn't matter. I'm telling you right now, the elections in Michigan are fraudulent. Okay? If you refuse to have actual integrity, transparency of integrity in a nonpartisan, impartial way, then you can be 100% positive that there is a dedicated, desired, premeditated effort to cheat and steal the election by the very persons who are running it. This is no different from an election that's being run by Putin. Michigan elections are no different from any election being run by Putin, where nobody has the authority or power to question the nature of how ballots are being cast in that state. Nobody who has any desire to actually seek out integrity. That is horrifying. What steps can be taken? I don't know. I'm not sufficiently familiar with Michigan constitutional law. To me, this seems ridiculous and a joke. However, reality is that the Supreme Court of the United States has been pretty what's the word I want to say? Pretty accepting of some pretty stupid state laws regarding elections, citing the plenary authority of states in how they conduct their elections. So I don't have much confidence. I don't have much confidence that this is going to be overturned, and I don't have any confidence at all, given the present state of the law in Michigan, that any election that they will conduct there can possibly be relied upon as being conducted in good faith. They will steal those electoral votes. So how many electoral votes does Michigan have? Let's take a look at that electoral map here. I think I got it up here. 15 electoral votes that Michigan has. 15 electoral votes that you can guarantee that the Democrats will make sure that if they don't win it legitimately, they will 100% steal with the utmost confidence that they can never be stopped. If that doesn't horrify you, I don't know what to tell you. That should horrify you whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. Alas, given the state of the world today, too many people don't care as long as it benefits their side. That's the problem with partisan politics. That's the problem. Integrity is on life support in this country. It's sad. It's really sad. And I don't have an answer for you, Cars in Depth. I don't have an answer for you, Adam Rescue Michigan. I don't have an answer for you, Lucas Gerhardt. I don't have an answer for you, Robin Dopp, which I assume you care, and I don't know, but you probably wouldn't trust my say on this anyway. I don't have an answer because, frankly, I think those are 15 electoral votes, which we can. There's no out there, and the most horrifying thing is, if they were to win, there's no reason anyone should believe that it's a legitimate win. I'll be very surprised if Michigan, which before had a high watermark of 72% voting, and in 2020 magically got up to 79% of registered voters voting. I'd be very surprised if in 2024 that number comes in under 85. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm going to be landing my plane here. Tomorrow I might start a little late. Depends how long my draft goes and how much I can set up in advance before it. So I might end up starting a little late tomorrow. Not sure. But you'll get notifications for that at goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com. If you are in the league, I'm going to be putting in Locals a link for everyone to join in to the chat there, so we can hopefully have everyone there on the phone and sort of running the draft with a little banter and a little back and forth there, so we can get everything going. Anyway, that's the story. I'm sticking to it. I'm going to remind you before I get on out of here to make sure that no matter how I don't care if it's sirloin, if it's lab meat, don't eat lab meat. Don't. And of course, obviously, do not, never eat the bugs. Don't eat the bugs. Do not eat the bugs. Have a good night, my friends, and as always, Walz.